Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. It is election day, if you will. Basically, it's one of those election days to where, yes, there are some government races, state government races, state governor races that are happening, city mayoral races that are happening. But mostly, the one that's really populating this entire election year, if you want to look at it that way, what's really populating it is a lot of these special elections about redistricting and all that. So I already gave my take on that. So if you want to check that video out, you can find it here on the channel. But I basically, you can see in the title it says special elections, but basically I give my thoughts on the whole scenario there. But with that said, before we get into the topic here on this Tuesday morning, let me ask you to do me a favor, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and click on the links in the description. And by clicking on the links in the description, you can find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. You can find me at iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible Music, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and to an extent, SiriusXM. You can also find me at various other video outlets like Rumble.com and VENMO.com. Basically, on those two outlets, I will have content identical to what you see here on my main YT channel, but there's also content there that you won't see on this channel because of certain reasons, algorithms and appropriateness and stuff like that. So you can find it over at my Rumble.com and VENMO.com accounts, and you can find me also at Dailymotion and at Odyssey. Links are in the description. And now also you can find me at DeviantArt.com at DeviantArt.com at BVW1979, BVW1979 at DeviantArt. I will not post the link there. Oh, and I will not post the link in the description, I should say. It's early, guys. I do apologize. But I will not post the link in the description due to the fact there is some content on my DeviantArt page that has gotten me in trouble before, so I will not post the link to that, but you can find me there at BVW1979. You can also find me at inkbunny.net at BWRosas, at BWRosas, if you will. You can also follow me over at Twitter, aka X.com, and at Blue Sky. I'm also on TikTok, if you want to check those areas out. I'm also on Twitch.tv. I got some stuff on Twitch.tv. I have to reopen that eventually down the line. And also, ladies and gentlemen, not only am I on Twitch.tv, but as an alternative, just in case things happen, I am also on Kick.com. I got to get that up and going really, really soon as well. And also, you can find me at my other areas, which are basically my two online stores. I have a fourth wall store. I have a couple of items there. Two are graphic tees. Basically I got some. Basically, they have some stuff on there you will like, and one of them being inspirational, if you will, and one being, if you're a Rescue Ranger fan, Chippendale Rescue Ranger fan, I think you will like. And also, there's a couple of items that don't have no graphics on it. I might have to fix that in the near future, but I think you'll see I think you will like what you see on there if you want to find something for yourself or for anybody during the holiday season, for Christmas and everything. Also, so the link to the fourth wall store, I should say, is at the top if you want to check that out. And then links to the OG Teespring store, which has been around for a couple of years now, is at the bottom as well if you want to check that out for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. Again, I do apologize. It's early. It's now 7:50 a.m. on this Tuesday morning. But yeah, you can go to one of those two links, the one at the top or the bottom, if you want to check out merchandise just in time for Christmas, just in time for the holidays, or for something for yourself down the line. Also, during this video premiere, the live chat will be open. Thus, if you want to come in and chime your thoughts in there, basically give your thoughts, say hi, or what have you, that'd be greatly appreciated. And also, SuperChats will be open during this video premiere as well in the live chat. So if you want to come on in and not just hi, but not just say hi, I should say, but also donate, if you will, kind of help out, if you will, help a fellow content creator out if you would like. That's up to you. Now, if you don't Now, if you don't listen to this as it's premiering live, then you can also donate through the Super Thanks button, which will be basically in the information area of the video, or at the bottom of the video. You can donate there. And also on both occasions, during the live premiere and afterwards, you can comment in the comment section. But with that said, let's get on to the topic at hand, shall we? So I got to give a shout out to Cartoon Universe and to other outlets as well that have watched the entire second season of Hazbin Hotel thanks to a special privilege that Amazon's Prime Video has given them, and I think by extension Viziepop has given them. So I have to give a shout out to them, like Cartoon Universe and such. But one of the videos they were talking about is the fact that in season 2, in episode 2 of season 2 that is, we pretty much got something that we didn't think we were going to get, but Vizzy had gone out of her way and kind of hinted that we were going to get more, I guess you could say, character growth, more character growth and more of a history of some of these characters, mostly the main characters and everything. And the way she's doing this and who she started with, it actually makes sense. The character she started with was Sir Penteris, Sir Penteris, if you will. And basically, it all, like I said, basically how, the reason she started with him is because he had, it's because she wanted to do the whole background thing. As I was trying to say, again, guys, I do apologize. It is early. I'm still waking up, even though I'm drinking some coffee to keep me going. Or to wake me up and keep me going. But anyway, she basically wanted to give more character growth and development to the characters, right? So what she did is she went with Serpentis as the starting point in the second episode of season 2. And basically, the way she did this is instead of focusing like on what the background was, in heaven or in hell, if you will, as who they are or were, in those areas. Instead, she's doing it by showing us what these characters look like and who they were when they were alive. That's right. Basically, what she's doing is she's basically giving an allegory of, in her perception, because she has admitted she's not a religious person herself, although obviously she does believe there is a higher power, if you will. She does believe there is a higher power when it comes to many religions and their beliefs. So she's not denying that. She's just not like full out religious Christian or Catholic or Buddhist or anything like that. She's just more, like, hey, she's observing, she's taking notes, and that's what's inspiring her to come up with some of these ideas, in my opinion. But anyway, she came up with this idea that the way we're going to look at the background of a lot of these characters is, not just who they were like in hell or in heaven, but mainly to look at what they were on earth, basically like before they ascended or descended, if you will. And for Serpentius, his real name on earth was Pentelin. His name was Pentelin, I think. I think that's how it's pronounced, Pentelin. And he was kind of like I guess you could say, some people would, I think Cartoon Universe and others say he was kind of like a hermit, but obviously he wasn't, in my opinion, because how could you be a hermit if you're living in your apartment and your main thing you're doing, the main thing you're doing is inventing and all that. How can you be a hermit if you're doing that and you have to go out and about to, let's say, buy the stuff you need, to make these inventions, a reality. Why would you be a hermit? I think when they talk about hermit in Serpentius' case when he was Pentelin, I think what they're saying is him being a hermit was he only would go out to get food, go out to get what he needs for his inventions, and rarely socialize, if you will. I've had some people kind of say that to me, and I'm sure others have said that to other people as well, that don't feel like they're in the mood to do stuff. But when we give our reasonings, it's not, it's not us saying, oh, we don't want to go because we're more focused on this. No, we have our reasonings as to why we don't want to do that. And thank the Lord they understand. Thank the Lord they understand. But anyway, I don't think he's that way. I think he's just more like he wants to focus on getting things done, and everything. He's kind of like a inventaholic, if you will. It's not like he's kind of like a workaholic inventaholic. That's what he was in his Earth life, during his time on Earth, and even as we saw in the first season of of Hazbin Hotel, he was the same way. He was the same way. So basically, her doing this, by giving us pretty much the first clue of, hey, so Pentis used to be a human on Earth. He used to be an inventor and everything, and had clientele that would come to him for his inventions or for his help, with fixing stuff or inventing stuff for them. To show that, as basically the first, like character growth and development, to get to know more about the character's lore, if you will, their history before, descending or ascending, I think is a great idea. I really do. So it only makes you wonder, it only makes you wonder, excuse me, are we going to see more of that? Are we going to see more of these characters have backgrounds given to them that's going to allow them to be fleshed out? How many more characters are we going to see in Hazbin Hotel outside of Serpentius? How many other characters are we going to see that, used to be something else or someone else on Earth before they became who they were by either ascending or descending? And to me, obviously, and I think anybody else would agree, the most obvious next candidate, because we got a hint at this in the first episode of season 2, and somewhat throughout season 1, I believe, is going to be Vox, basically who's going to be the main antagonist. Obviously, we're going to find out what he was like, on Earth, potentially in a flashback, and why, he has become, basically like the head V, if you will, like the main V of the 3 Vs down in hell. So it's going to be interesting to see what his background was, or to see his background as a human on Earth, a corrupted TV exec or something like that, on Earth, that led to where he is now. But also you got the other 2 Vs, so obviously we're going to find out about them too. And that's going to be interesting in the long run. And the reason I also feel this is interesting, is because it's almost like, in a way, we could be told, by certain characters, a lot more about them, that, they're not initially, or they never initially wanted to be one way or the other, but because of certain decisions, they ended up where they are. With Serpentius, his decisions, landed him down below before he redeemed himself. And by redeeming himself, it set him above and everything. So it's really interesting to see this being incorporated into Hazbin Hotel and everything. Starting with Serpentius, seeing what his life was on Earth. But now, eventually, like I said, we're going to see it, once again with other characters. We're going to see it, obviously, with Vox. We're going to see it with the other 2 Vs. We're going to see it with other members, of the Hazbin Hotel themselves. We might even see it with Nifty, because Nifty basically is a, psycho. She's kind of a cute little psycho that basically Lute should be targeting instead of Charlie, because she's the one that basically, put the final blow, stabbing literally Adam right in the back multiple times. So maybe we'll find out what her background is, maybe we'll find out what, what Asterisk, background is, and maybe we'll find out. I can't think of the name right now, but the porn star, whatever his name, their name is. I can't think of it. I do apologize. Maybe we'll find out what their history is, before they descended. Maybe we'll find that out. Maybe we'll find out what cherry bombs, history was, and so on. I mean, Vizzy going in this direction, to me opens the door. It opens the door not just for what we're going to see, in Hazbin Hotel, but throughout the Helluverse. Because to me, what she's doing here, obviously you also got to do it, in Helluva Boss. You got to carry it over. You got to carry it over to Helluva Boss. You got to do that. And to me, once you carry this element over to there, that's going to make things a lot more interesting too. Because, excuse me, because now you're going to have fans wondering, okay, if this element gets carried over from Hazbin Hotel over to Helluva Boss, does that mean we're going to see the backgrounds of, Millie? Are we going to see the human, like before they descended, we're going to see the human version of Millie? Are we going to see the human version of Mox? Are we going to see the human version of Luna? Well, we do see the human version of Luna when she goes from Hellhound to human when she's in disguise, or she has to hide herself and everything, like she did in that one episode when they took on the cherubs. But the point I'm getting at, are we going to see what Luna looked like before her descension? Like, the human that she transforms into, are we going to see that in a flashback of that's how she was beforehand? Like, that was legitimately her default, her actual look and everything. Are we going to see that? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, if you will. Or are we going to see her maybe, and I don't like it, and I'll be honest with you, I don't like when stories do this, but honestly though, if this is where they got to go, they got to go. Maybe we'll see her as a wolf cub. Because again, we saw what her final transformation, well, one of her newest transformations were in the finale, if you will, the season 2 finale of Helluva Boss called Sinmis, if you will. We saw that, right? We saw what she can turn into. So you got to wonder if her background might be either she was a teenage human, or basically a teenage human that tragically something happened to her before she can come of age. Thus allowing her to be her own, person and everything, or in this case, her own hellhound. You got to wonder that if that's what we're going to find, if that's what we're going to see, or are we going to see that maybe she was part of a pack of wolves and she got abandoned? She got abandoned, and it's basically, at a young age. Not necessarily like a pup, but kind of like, like in between, like halfway growth, if you will. And she got abandoned to her own, to basically survive on her own, and she couldn't. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's how we find out what her background is. Again, this opens the door, in my opinion, to so many opportunities, if you will, when it comes to growing characters, even more so than what they are. I mean, again, we could see that, with Helluva Boss, because if it's happening in Hazbin Hotel, it's got to carry over to Helluva Boss, and a lot of people are going to expect that. Again, to see Luna's potential Earth life background before she ended up where she is, to see it with Millie, to see it with Mox, to see it with Blitzo, if you will, to see it with Stolas, to see it with Octavia, and everything. It's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting to see how their lives were from an Earth perspective, from a living on Earth perspective, before they ended up where they are. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all culminates. In the future for both Hazbin and Helluva Boss, because again with Hazbin, to see them starting to do this, to see Vizzy do this, I think it's a great move. To see her do this, starting with Serpentius, and showing who he was on Earth when he was alive, called with the name of Pentolin, is great. To see potentially see the flashback and background of Vox and who he was and how he ended up in hell as a V, that's going to be great. Again, to me, the box is open. The box is open, and basically, now is the time, because it's open, to get all these backgrounds, to get this lore for all these characters out there, so that we can have a better understanding of why they're the way they are, and basically who they were in the past that caused them to become who they are, or who they are currently, if you will. So I like the idea. I like it. I like the idea. I like it, and I also, again, like the. I also feel like, again, and again, I do apologize. It's early. It's about 8:05, 8:06 a.m. right now. 8:06 a.m. But I do also like the idea that if you're going to do it here, then obviously you got to carry it over to Helluva Boss. You got to carry it to Helluva Boss as well, and do it for those characters. So to me, you do it with Hazbin Hotel. You're connecting it as one universe, if you will. Then obviously you got to carry this same storytelling, this same background lore storytelling for the characters, the history and everything. You got to carry that over to Helluva Boss, and apply it to them as well. You got to, like I said, you got to apply it to all these characters. You got to. Heck, you got to apply it to Queen Bee, to Beelzebub herself. Got to apply it to her. That'll be interesting to see what her background was and how she got to be where she is and everything. As basically the fan-friendly, understanding, basically the fan-friendly, understanding, hey, I get you guys. I'm with you guys. I want to be, I basically someone that would rather be working with, the common, basically the ones that are looked down upon and everything. It would be interesting to see what her background is like. It's going to be interesting to see what's that one girl? What's her name? The one that Blitzo used to date, the pop star. The Vyasa something. I can't pronounce it. I can't remember her name correctly. I can't remember what her name is and everything. Hold on for a second, guys. Let me double check. Okay, sorry about that, guys, but yeah, the other character of Rostica, it's gonna be interesting to see what her life was like, because in Hell of a Boss, she's a pop star, right? And she had a history with Blitzo. So it's going to be interesting to see if maybe they want to dive into her, in her background when she lived on Earth before she descended. So again, doing this whole scenario to where now we're going to get to know what their lives were like on Earth before they ascended or descended. That is going to be great to see. That is great character building, great character history lore being given to us that, honestly, let's be honest, we did not expect her to do. But the moment she hinted that this would happen, obviously it's something we're glad to see. We're glad to see, but again, if you're gonna do it for one of the Helluverse shows that you're connecting together, you got to do it with the other one. And I think beginning it and starting it with the characters in Hazbin Hotel is a great way to introduce it, and then incorporating it into Helluva Boss maybe for season 3 or midway through season 3 and into season 4, because apparently it's only going to have 4 seasons. By incorporating it over there, helps it. Basically, it's going to help that show and those characters grow even more so than what they are. And again, it will allow us to see what they were like on Earth before they descended, if you will, descended down to where they are now. So again, if you're going to use it in one show, you got to do it, and those shows are under the same universe. Then you got to connect. Then you obviously got to bring it over to the other one. And again, the amount of characters she is just, obviously gonna give this treatment to is gonna be, just awesome to see. Just gonna be awesome to see, and it's gonna get. And here's the other thing too. To me, it's gonna get a lot of people asking questions like, well, wait a minute. What if a child is born, in hell or in heaven? Does that mean that's a child that's basically used to be an adult, but now they're being reincarnated as a child that's going to grow into something down there or up there. That's going to get people wondering. It's going to get them asking those kind of questions. If maybe was Charlie, for example, somebody different on Earth before she ended up where she is, and everything. And the same with Lilith, the same with even Lucifer to an extent, and even Sarah and Emily, up in heaven. It's like you're gonna wonder, you gotta wonder, again, if it, you gotta wonder again, if fans will not want to see those backgrounds be explored as well. Those characters' lives on Earth be explored before they ascended or descended. So yeah, I got to give Vizzy a lot of credit. Got to give her a lot of credit for doing this. And I think again, if you're going, and I truly believe again that if you're going to introduce it in this show, and this show is connected in the same universe, if you will, as Helluva Boss, then you got to basically also incorporate it there. And I think that's what fans are expecting. I think Vizzy knows they're expecting it, and I'm not going to be surprised. I will not be surprised come season 3, whether it's right off the bat or in the middle of season 3, we start getting the similar flashbacks and storyline flashbacks of the characters and who they were on Earth before they ended up where they are. So that's just my opinion, but I think it's great. I think this is something that a lot of shows need to do. Whether they've been established shows that are getting a reboot or a soft reboot or continuation, or they're just new projects. I'm not saying that Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel are new. They're established, but they're still looked at as fairly new, especially on a big streaming platform like Prime. So, so to me, to have shows incorporate this kind of stuff, it helps them out. It helps them grow, and it gets fans to want to know more. It's going to get fans to want to know more about other characters and what their lives were before they ended up where they are. So it's a great move on her part, and I hope to see, and I hope we see more and everything with other characters. I think we are going to see more. With Vox and the other V's, and I think we're going to see it as well, maybe with the certain main staff members of the hotel itself, and maybe even Charlie. We'll see. We might even see it with Sarah and Emily. That might happen, but that's up to Vizzy. It's up to Vizzy. We'll see how far she'll want to go with it, if you will. But obviously, in my opinion, like I said, she's probably realizing that fans are not only going to be enjoying this addition to the character growth and development of said characters that's going to be applied to, but she probably also knows and realizes that if this is all under one universe, she's also going to possibly do it for the characters of Helluva Boss and certain characters that fans want to know more about outside of being just beloved characters, if you know what I mean. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I could say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section, if you will. And do me a solid favor, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube and to support me outside of YouTube as well. Give me your thoughts. How do you feel about what Vizzy's doing here with the character background now stuff being introduced? And do you think we'll see it be also incorporated into Helluva Boss? Let me know, and until next time, I am out.